Today I'd like to talk to you guys about something that is near and very dear to my heart. Also something that's a little bit eye-rolling, but it's okay. I like to start by telling you a story. It was July 9th, 3 o'clock in the morning, alright, and I was sitting in my room in the dark with my computer, watching, of all things, a wrestling show. Yeah, it's okay, you can eye-roll now. To be more clear, it's a Japanese wrestling show. This is my favorite wrestler, facing off against a guy who's a formidable opponent. And at the end of it, he won. And he held up the big belt, and I'll admit, I got a little bit emotional. It was a nice thing. And it was in that moment that I seen him doing that, and I thought to myself, man, I want to know everything about what just happened. I want to know how people started doing this, why somebody thought, hey, it'd be a good idea to throw this guy across the ring. And then found out about this assignment and started doing my research for it. And so today I'd like to tell you a little bit about the history of something we all like to call professional wrestling. Now, most people say that it started all with WWE in the 50s, but unfortunately that's not quite true. You see, back in Sumerian times, in fact with the Epic of Gilgamesh, is the first recorded instance of wrestling ever coming about. There were pictures of guys wrestling each other, throwing each other around, coupled up in groups, over 400 of them I believe. And from there it went to Egypt, where it was actually a pretty big thing. People actually had their own corporations. Even in ancient Egypt, they had their big games where people would gather around and wrestle each other. And then obviously, just like anything in the world, it went to the Greeks. And the Greeks, brought it to the Olympics and thought it a scientific and almost a divine sport in their own way. And once again, with everything, it ended up going to the Romans. And from the Romans, it went to the rest of the world. Skip forward to the 1800s, where wrestlers, they were either of two classes. You were either a part of the elite rich people who would gather together and do wrestling in their houses and all that jazz, or you were these people who weren't a part of that. And what they did is they got together in these troops and basically like little carnivals. It'd be like strong men and giant bears and animals and bearded women and all this stuff. And they started touring all of Europe in these carnivals. And that was really where it started becoming fabricated, I guess is the best word. Bookers started putting certain people together and making them act a certain way so that it would set up a storyline. And that was just the way it was back then. And then wrestling started to kind of almost die out in Paris, maybe in the late 19th century. But the style of wrestling, known as catch as catch can, was picked up by the British, which is what we know as wrestling today. All the crazy holds and flips and stuff like that. They didn't flip back then, but all the holds and submissions and stuff like that, that's where that came from. And it eventually made its way over to America, where, following the tradition, it'd be like a carnival. Guys would get together along with, all kind of circus actors and stuff and put on these shows. And it was a spectacle back then. And it evolved until the point we are at today. Today, there is a slew of major companies out there. There's many stars of the sport, and some of the best ones, like Kenny Omega and Okada, put on these matches that are hailed as the greatest around the world. But wrestling isn't over. This isn't the end of the road by any means. There's always new companies sprouting up. There's people figuring out new ways to do the theatrics and the talents that they know. And wrestling is a ever-evolving sport in its own right. Now, in conclusion, I would like to harken back to when I was sitting down at 3 a.m. watching two guys sweaty tackle each other, and let you know that theatrics are a very investing thing. We all sit down and watch TVs and movies and stuff like that, and we get invested in it. Well, to people like me who are fans of wrestling, it's the same thing. Most people sit down and watch, Game of Thrones, get interested in it. I sit down and watch wrestling for the storylines, and I love it. And today, thanks for sitting here and listening to me ramble about the history of something that I hold near and dear to myself. And thanks everybody.
Okay.